What if I told you that the person you see in the mirror this morning isn't entirely real? That the solid world around you, the chair you're sitting on, the screen you're looking at is nothing more than a beautiful, persistent illusion? This isn't philosophy. This isn't spirituality. This is the staggering conclusion that modern science is being forced to confront. For thousands of years, we have trusted our senses. We believed that the world is exactly as we see it. But what if our eyes, our ears, our sense of touch have not evolved to show us the truth? What if they have evolved only to show us a simplified user interface, one designed to hide the true, mind-boggling complexity of what is actually out there? The ancient Greek philosopher Plato once told a story, the allegory of the cave. He imagined prisoners chained in a cave, facing a blank wall their entire lives. Behind them, a fire burns, and people walk past, casting shadows on the wall. For the prisoners, these shadows are their entire reality. They give them names, study their behavior, and believe them to be the real world, never knowing the true objects that cast them. Plato asked, what would happen if one prisoner broke free and saw the world outside the cave, the real world of light and form? Would the other prisoners even believe him? Today, science is telling us that we are those prisoners. We are staring at the shadows on the wall, convinced it is the whole of existence. But in the last century, a few brilliant minds have broken free. They've peered behind the curtain, and what they have found is so strange, so utterly contrary to our everyday experience, that it threatens to shatter the very foundations of our civilization. This is the story of that discovery, a journey into the deepest, most fundamental question of all: what is reality? Stay with us, because the answer will change not only how you see the universe, but how you see yourself. Before we dive into the truly bizarre, let's start with what we can't see, but we know is there. Your eyes are incredible instruments, but they are profoundly limited. Right now, you are being bombarded by a universe of information that is completely invisible to you. Radio waves carrying broadcasts from distant stations, microwaves carrying your phone calls, infrared radiation coming from your own body, it all passes through you, unseen and unfelt. All the colors we see, from the deepest red to the most vibrant violet, are just a sliver, a tiny, almost insignificant fraction of the total electromagnetic spectrum. If the entire spectrum were the length of the United States, the part you can see would be thinner than a single human hair. The rest of reality is, to our senses, completely dark. But this invisible light is just the beginning of the mystery. The greatest astronomers of the 20th century made a terrifying discovery. They looked at galaxies, massive spinning islands of stars, and they realized something was deeply wrong. According to our best understanding of gravity, Einstein's theory of general relativity, these galaxies were spinning so fast that they should have torn themselves apart. The stars on the outer edges should have been flung off into the void, like children flying off a merry-go-round that's spinning too quickly. There wasn't enough visible matter, not enough gravitational glue from the stars and gas we could see to hold them together. The only possible conclusion was that there must be something else there. Something massive, yet completely invisible. They called it dark matter, and it's not a small amount. Scientists now calculate that all the stuff we can see, every star, every planet, every galaxy, every human being, makes up only 5% of the known universe. About 27% is this mysterious, invisible, dark matter. The remaining 68% is even stranger, a force called dark energy, which seems to be pushing the entire universe apart, causing its expansion to accelerate. Think about that for a moment. 95% of the cosmos is made of components we cannot see, cannot detect, and cannot comprehend. Our science, our entire picture of reality, is based on a mere 5% of what's actually out there. We are not just prisoners in Plato's cave, staring at shadows. We are prisoners in a cave, staring at only 5% of the shadows, completely oblivious to the vast, unseen reality that dominates the cosmos. This discovery alone proves that the world is not what it seems. But this is just the first layer. The next layer down, the very foundation of matter itself, is where reality truly begins to dissolve into an impossible dream. For centuries, the scientific dream was to find the ultimate building block of reality. We thought if we could just break matter down into its smallest possible piece, a tiny, indivisible ball of stuff, we would finally understand the world. We smashed atoms apart and found electrons, protons, and neutrons. We thought we were close. But when physicists in the early 20th century, giants like Einstein, Bohr, and Heisenberg, finally cornered these fundamental particles, they didn't find solid little balls. They found something else, something that defied all logic. They found a world of pure, shimmering potentiality. This is the world of quantum mechanics, and it is the bedrock of our universe. Here is the first shocking truth of the quantum world. Fundamental particles, like electrons, don't actually exist in any one specific place until you look at them. Before you observe it, an electron isn't a point. It exists as a wave of probability, a ghostly cloud of potential locations spread out across space. It is literally in hundreds, even thousands of places at the same time. Think of it like a spinning coin. While it's in the air, it's both heads and tails simultaneously. It's only when it lands, when it is observed, that it is forced to choose a state. The act of observation doesn't just reveal the reality of the particle. The act of observation seems to create its reality. This is called the observer effect, and it is the deepest and most unsettling mystery in all of science. It introduces the one thing that science has tried for centuries to exclude from its equations: the observer, us. It gets even stranger. Quantum entanglement, which Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance, proves that two particles can be linked in a mysterious way, no matter how far apart they are. If you measure a property of one particle, its entangled twin, even if it's on the other side of the galaxy, will instantly adopt a corresponding property. Information seems to travel between them faster than the speed of light, breaking what we thought was the ultimate speed limit of the universe. What does this mean? It means the world, at its most fundamental level, is not a collection of separate, independent things. It is a deeply interconnected, holistic web of relationships. It means that the solid, predictable, local world we experience is an emergent property, a high-level illusion generated by a deeper, stranger, and non-local reality. The floor beneath your feet is not truly solid. It is a frenzied dance of probability waves, a ghost that only pretends to be solid because the electrons in your feet are repelling the electrons in the floor. So if matter itself is just a probability, a potentiality that is actualized by observation, then the foundational question becomes unavoidable. What, then, is the universe made of? One revolutionary idea is that it's not made of stuff at all. It's made of information. The idea that information might be more fundamental than matter or energy is one of the most profound shifts in modern physics. It was famously summarized by the physicist John Wheeler with a simple, elegant phrase: it from bit. What does this mean? It represents every physical thing in the universe. A particle, a planet, a star, even the fabric of space-time itself. Bit represents a single unit of information, a yes or no answer, a 1 or a 0. The theory suggests that the physical world, the it, emerges from the immaterial world of information, the bit. Think about the world of a video game. The character, the castle, the dragon, they all seem real within the game's world. But what are they? Fundamentally, they are not physical objects. They are information. They are lines of code, a sequence of 1 second and 0 seconds processed by a computer, which then generates the illusion of a physical world on your screen. The it of the dragon is derived from the bit of the code. Could our universe work in the same way? Could every particle be nothing more than the result of a cosmic computation, a pixel on a cosmic screen? This idea solves many of the paradoxes of quantum mechanics. If a particle is just a piece of information, it makes sense that it doesn't have definite properties until it is measured. Measuring the particle is like loading that piece of data, forcing the system to render a specific outcome from a range of possibilities. Quantum entanglement, the spooky action at a distance, is no longer so spooky if the universe is a unified information system. The two entangled particles aren't sending a signal to each other. They are just two pixels on a screen that are governed by the same line of code. If you change one, the other changes instantly because the underlying code dictates their relationship, regardless of their position on the screen. If the universe is, at its core, a vast information processor, it leads us to the most audacious and unsettling hypothesis of all. If reality is running on something that looks like code, and if its fundamental rules seem to be computational, then who or what wrote the code? Who or what is running the program? This question is no longer confined to the realms of science fiction. It is a serious scientific and philosophical inquiry, and it has a name that you have almost certainly heard before: the simulation hypothesis. Are we living in a cosmic computer program created by a far more advanced intelligence? The simulation hypothesis proposes that our reality, in its entirety, from the Big Bang to this very moment, is an artificial, computer-generated simulation. We, and everything we have ever known, would be part of this program. This isn't a metaphor. It's the literal idea that we are akin to characters in an incredibly advanced video game, and we are completely unaware of it. This sounds insane, but the arguments for it are surprisingly logical, and they are being seriously discussed by some of the greatest minds on the planet. The most famous argument comes from the philosopher Nick Bostrom. It goes something like this. First, assume that consciousness can be simulated. If our brains are just complex biological computers, then with enough processing power, it should be possible to create artificial consciousness inside a computer. Second, assume that an advanced civilization would have immense computational power. A civilization just a few thousand years ahead of us could likely create what they call an ancestor simulation, a simulation of their own history, populated with conscious, simulated beings who think they are real. Why would they do this? For the same reasons we run simulations. For scientific research, for entertainment, or simply because they can. Now, here is the crucial step. If a civilization can run one such simulation, they can likely run thousands, or even millions. For every one base physical reality, there could be billions of simulated realities running within it. If that's the case, then from a purely probabilistic standpoint, where are we more likely to be? Are we more likely to be in the one original base reality, or in one of the billions of simulated realities? The odds, quite simply, are overwhelmingly in favor of us being in a simulation. Scientists are even looking for evidence. Some have suggested that if we are in a simulation, there might be glitches in the matrix, small physical laws that don't quite add up. Others propose that the simulation would have a finite resolution, a pixel size for space-time itself, which we might one day be able to detect. The fact that our universe seems to be governed by mathematical laws, that its fundamental components are discrete like quantum packets, and that it behaves like an information system, are all consistent with the idea that we are living inside a grand computation. This is a staggering thought. It would mean that our creators, the programmers of our universe, could be watching us right now. But there is another theory, just as bizarre, that comes not from philosophy, but directly from the strange mathematics of black holes. A theory that suggests our reality is not a simulation, but a projection. Imagine you have a credit card. On its surface, there's a small, flat, two-dimensional square, a hologram. But when you tilt it in the light, a three-dimensional image of a bird or a globe appears, with depth and perspective. The three-dimensional image is not real in the way a physical object is. Its reality is an illusion. All the information required to create that 3D image is entirely encoded on the flat, 2D surface of the hologram. Now, what if our entire universe works the same way? This is the essence of the holographic principle, one of the most profound and mind-altering ideas in modern physics. It suggests that our experience of a three-dimensional universe with its depth, its volume, its vast cosmic spaces is an illusion. It proposes that our 3D reality is a projection, a holographic image generated from information stored on a distant, two-dimensional surface that surrounds our known universe. This idea didn't come out of nowhere. It emerged from attempts to solve the deepest paradoxes surrounding black holes. Scientists like Gerard Tooft and Leonard Susskind were wrestling with a problem. What happens to the information of something that falls into a black hole? According to quantum mechanics, information can never be destroyed. But according to Einstein's theories, anything that crosses a black hole's event horizon is gone forever. The solution they proposed was revolutionary. They theorized that the information isn't lost. Instead, it gets smeared out and encoded on the two-dimensional surface of the event horizon itself, like data being saved to a hard drive. Therefore, everything you need to know about the three-dimensional interior of the black hole is stored on its two-dimensional boundary. They then made an incredible leap. What if this principle doesn't just apply to black holes? What if it applies to the entire universe? What if we are living inside the 3D projection while the source code of reality is written on some cosmic boundary, a 2D surface at the edge of the cosmos? This isn't just a fun analogy. It's a mathematically rigorous concept. Astonishingly, equations that describe events in a 3D universe with gravity can be mathematically translated into equations describing particle interactions on a 2D surface without gravity, and vice versa. The math works. If this is true, it means that what we call fundamental reality is not here in our 3D world. The fundamental reality is a flat, 2D information field out there. We are the hologram. It suggests that space-time itself is not fundamental, but an emergent property of something deeper. Both the simulation hypothesis and the holographic principle point to the same startling conclusion. The physical world as we know it is not the base reality. But this leads to the final, most important question of all. If our world is a simulation, who is the user? If it's a hologram, who is the light shining on the film? In other words, what is the one thing that observes this information and turns it into an experience? The answer to that may be the final layer of reality: consciousness. We have journeyed through a universe that is 95% invisible. We have dived into a quantum realm where matter is a ghost of possibilities. We've explored the notion that our reality might be a simulation or a hologram, fundamentally made of information. But all of these ideas hinge on one final, mysterious element: observation. The quantum wave becomes a particle only when measured. The simulation needs a user. The hologram needs an observer to perceive the image. What is this common thread? It is consciousness. For centuries, science has treated consciousness as an afterthought, a strange and complex illusion produced by the brain, like a ghost in the machine. The assumption has always been that the universe is made of physical stuff, and that consciousness, somehow, magically arises from it after billions of years of evolution. This is the hard problem of consciousness. How does inert, unthinking matter create the rich, subjective experience of being you? The feeling of warmth from the sun, the beauty of a piece of music, the love for another person. How can a collection of atoms produce that? But what if we have had it completely backwards? What if the material world doesn't produce consciousness? What if consciousness produces the material world? This is the foundation of the most revolutionary paradigm shift in science, often called post-materialism. It proposes that consciousness is not an emergent property of matter, but that it is the fundamental ground of all being. that the universe, at its core, is not made of stuff, but of awareness. This idea, known as panpsychism or cosmopsychism in various forms, has roots in ancient spiritual traditions, but is now being explored by respected physicists and philosophers. They argue that this is the only way to solve the observer effect in quantum mechanics. The observer isn't just a human in a lab coat. The observer is consciousness itself, the underlying field from which all possibilities are actualized into experience. In this view, your individual consciousness is not something your brain creates. It is something your brain receives, like a radio receiver tuning into a cosmic broadcast of universal consciousness. We are not separate entities. We are temporary, localized whirlpools in a single, vast ocean of awareness. If this is true, then the universe is not a cold, dead, meaningless place. It is a living, thinking, and evolving being. The stars and galaxies are not just clumps of matter. They are thoughts in a cosmic mind. The laws of physics are not arbitrary rules. They are the habits of a universal consciousness. And we are not insignificant accidents. We are the universe finally waking up and becoming aware of itself. We are the means by which the cosmos looks back in wonder at its own magnificent creation. This idea brings our journey full circle. It suggests the ultimate reality is not something out there to be found, but something in here to be realized. So where does this incredible journey leave us? We began by questioning our senses and ended by questioning the very nature of the self and its place in the cosmos. We've seen how 95% of our universe is a dark, invisible mystery. We've plunged into the quantum world, where solid matter dissolves into a dance of pure potential, a world that seems to wait for an observer to bring it into being. We've entertained the staggering possibilities that our entire existence could be a hyper-realistic computer simulation or a complex holographic projection from the edge of the universe. And finally, we arrived at the most profound idea of all, that consciousness is not a random accident of biology, but the fundamental fabric from which reality itself is woven. Each of these layers tears away a piece of our common sense reality. Each step reveals a world far stranger, more interconnected, and more mysterious than we ever dared to imagine. So, what is the final answer? What is reality? The truth is, we don't have one single answer, and perhaps that is the most beautiful discovery of all. The goal of science and philosophy may not be to arrive at a final, static definition of reality, but to continue the glorious, unending process of exploration. Reality may not be a noun. It may be a verb, a process of becoming, an act of creation in which we are all participants. The greatest revolution is not the discovery of one specific theory, be it simulation, hologram, or consciousness. The greatest revolution is the realization that reality is not a fixed, objective thing that exists independently out there. Instead, it appears to be a dynamic, participatory process in which the observer and the observed are inextricably linked. The universe is not a movie we are watching. It is a story we are co-authoring, moment by moment. This understanding is incredibly empowering. If reality is shaped by observation and consciousness, then it means your consciousness matters. Your attention, your intention, your awareness, they are not passive experiences. They are active forces that participate in the shaping of the cosmos. You are not a speck of dust lost in an indifferent universe. You are a focal point of cosmic consciousness, a unique perspective through which the universe experiences itself. You are, in the most literal sense, a way for the cosmos to know itself. Our journey ends where it began, with a question. But now, the question is different. It is no longer just, what is reality? It is, what reality do we choose to create? As we stand at this turning point in human history, with our understanding of the world undergoing its most profound transformation, we are being invited to become conscious creators of our world, to build a future based not on separation and materialism, but on connection, awareness, and the profound mystery of existence. The journey into the nature of reality is ultimately a journey home to the realization of our own true nature. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. The biggest mysteries are still out there, waiting for us to ask the next question. What do you believe is the true nature of reality? Let's continue the conversation in the comments below.